The next item on our agenda is a section that is very important to NASTF. I want to make sure everyone understands that the most valuable asset for NASTF is its committee structure, because all of the programs that you see come out of NASTF come out of the committees. The committees do the work. When a problem is identified or an opportunity to get the independent service providers and the automakers together, those discussions take place in the committee. There is no better example of success that can come out of a committee than with our NASTF Vehicle Security Committee. And I'm going to bring up Claude Hensley as one of the co-chairs for the Vehicle Security Committee, and let him give a report on what the Vehicle Security Committee is working on.
Thank you, Skip.
You just use the right arrow.
This one right here. Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge my co-chair, Bob Stewart of General Motors. Bob could not be with us today, but in addition to all the other duties he has at General Motors, Bob has been working very hard on matters related to the Vehicle Security Committee. So Bob, I believe you're on the webcast. Thank you for all you do. I'm going to give a VSC update. But before we do that, I want to review a subject that I brought up at the last general meeting. What we're looking at on the screen is the very top of what we call the D1 form. This is attachment D-1 to our terms and conditions document. In essence, it is a permission slip from the owner of the vehicle, allowing the vehicle security professional to access the vehicle owner's security data. The customer shows positive ID matching the name on the registration or title. The VSP logs a few things onto this form, then the customer signs it. I mentioned last time that we were even more strongly emphasizing compliance audits of these forms. Our Director of Operations has increased the audits of these forms to an average of 80 per month. So if you are a member of the VSP registry, make sure you have all your D1 forms filed in a secure manner and accounted for. The Director of Operations will disable your account and has been doing so to people for failing to pass an audit of these forms. This form has to be taken seriously to keep your registry privileges. The theme for the Vehicle Security Report today is the increasing relevance of the Vehicle Security Professional Registry and NASTF. This table shows that all 50 states are represented in the registry, as well as 67 participants from Canada. This graph shows active members of the registry by year. As of December 31st, we had 2,422 active members of the VSP registry. We had a slide up here earlier of how much that's grown. It's significantly higher now. The green part of the bar here represents locksmiths that are members of the registry. The red represents auto service techs who are members. You may notice this graph is steepening. One reason is that there's been a very significant increase in the locksmith side of the equation in 2014. Automakers increased or have been increasing internal audits of security data transactions at their franchised dealers. If you have a dealer servicing 10,000 cars per year and only using a relatively small amount of security data to accomplish that, and then you have a dealer servicing 5,000 cars per year but using 5 times the security data of the bigger dealership, that might be an indication that the smaller dealership has security data being sold through the parts or service department. As automakers have cracked down on this practice, locksmiths who were used to getting their data from other sources discovered they could not only get their data in a way that was sanctioned by the automakers, but could also get it nights, weekends, and holidays when the dealer isn't even open and when a customer might be stranded far from. This data, as pointed out, is from the end of 2014. I can tell you that since that time, the red portion at the bottom has grown at a faster pace than the locksmith part at the top. Quite a number of auto service techs have signed up in response to MBUSA's expansion of available TRPs, theft relevant parts. Let's talk about that for a second. Back to our subject of relevance. You can purchase parts from the Mercedes TRP list, but you have to be validated as being in the VSP registry as part of the process. Ford validation screen. What in the world is that? Let me just say up front here, this is not a term you're going to see in Ford's training materials. I made this terminology up to give myself an easy bridge into this subject. We brought up at the spring meeting last year that on 2014 Fusion and MKZ, if you're working with a J2534 device and you're on the Ford service subscription site and you're installing certain security-related parts, a validation screen is going to pop up and ask you to enter your vehicle security professional credentials. Before you can proceed, you'll have to enter your VSP number, also known as an LSID, and password. Ford then pings the registry with David to make sure that you are a member. What is the point of this screen and the previous slide regarding Mercedes TRPs? The point is, automakers are finding, as time goes by, more utility for this program. In closing, I want to bring up this very impressive graph. You may notice this graph is also steepening. Way over on the left, that little dark blue stub you see represents 2008. That year, we logged 22,851 security data transactions. At that time, that looked very impressive. We didn't have all these other bars to the right to compare it to. I personally was blown away by the purple bar last year when we topped 500,000 data transactions in the registry. 2014 has proved even more impressive. In 2014, we were only 116,000 short of 1 million transactions in the registry. That brings us back to how we started this segment today. NASTF and the Vehicle Security Professional Registry are gaining more and more relevance for the automotive industry. We do have time for a couple of questions if anyone has one. Yes, sir, Kurt. The members of the registry pay, we've used the term membership fee, you might say, but part of that is background checking and so forth. So that's how the registry is funded at this time. Then the automakers themselves have a charge for their particular data. For example, if you need a PIN code and the mechanical code, on most of the sites, that's all. I think Nissan's is separate. You can purchase both together, or you can purchase one or the other if you just need it separately. And I personally think that's a good model. A lot of our auto service techs are going to be going on here in the future, and they're just really going to need a PIN code. That's what they're looking for. And yeah, and then the locksmiths, if all the keys are lost, they definitely will. And, well, in a lot of cases, they don't exactly need the mechanical PIN code. I mean, the mechanical key bitting. But we can certainly get the customer on the road a lot quicker if we get that data at the same time. We absolutely do need the PIN codes. So, any other questions? Okay, Return control at this time to our NASTF Executive Director, Skip Potter.
Thank you, Clyde. The next committee is our Equipment and Tool Committee. And presenting for our ETC, Kurt Imicus. And as Kurt wanders up here, Kurt is with Volkswagen and Audi. Thank you very much for being here today.
Well, the excitement continues. I think our audience here is getting thinner and thinner, but thank you all for sticking around at least. Is there? Okay. Hi, everybody out there. Yeah, Greg Potter and I co-chair this committee, and it's been an honor working with him, and hope to continue doing so. We don't have a lot to talk about today, but there's a couple of slides that we can carry on with. What's the next slide? Oh, yeah, okay. Campaign for J2534-5. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with it or not, but the SAE is working on a more advanced specification for J2534, which is the pass-through reprogramming spec. Reason for that was that the old 4.04 spec had some gaps in it where tools could not necessarily match some of the OEM requirements, so they've tightened that up and made some significant changes in that specification to try to adjust for that and make it more consistent. And they've also added a lot of new features that will have to be incorporated. And the challenge now is to get both tool manufacturers and vehicle manufacturers to adapt the new spec in sync, so that as we move forward, like in the next few years, that everyone's on the same page as far as that's concerned. And there are some of the challenges involved with the OEMs, just the amount of time and effort and expense it's going to be to make that work on the cars. And with the tool manufacturers, from what Greg was saying, there is some significant software changes inside the pass-through devices that have to be put in place in order to make that happen. One of the other things is the equipment and tools matrix on the web pages of NASTF. Those is a continuing challenge to try to keep those up to date for different features and benefits that are on that site. So tool SIRs, went the wrong way. Is there any volume of tool SIRs, Skip, that we've seen? So everybody seems to be pretty satisfied with where things are from getting OEM tools. Greg?
We had one of our last meetings that we talked about in Las Vegas was creating a new process for that.
Yeah.
That is still in the works.
Okay.
It's not dead. It's coming back. There's just been it's being done by ETI.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, in Vegas last year, it was announced that ETI was having a transition between Charlie Gorman retiring and myself.
Yeah.
And that has taken a lot of our time.
Yeah.
I would say, in transitioning over to the new management and moving our office, moving our bank, moving the servers, and so many things that we're doing that we'll soon be back working on that process, and we'll have that. We hope to have that finished up by our next major meeting.
Yeah, to give you a little bit more background on that, what that involves is independent repair shops have a way now to file SIRs that are specific to service information needs or tool needs that people want OEMs to react to. The tool makers don't have their own venue for doing that same thing. There might be that a tool maker needs to equip his tool to be used on a particular OEM, and that has never been specified as a separate SIR. And we're seeing that more and more as something that needs to be done, because part of our charge, our mandate from the Memorandum of Understanding and so forth, is that we have to be able to equip tool companies to be able to fix our cars as well as independent repair shops. It kind of goes hand in hand. So there really was not a more an accurate way or a specific way for tool companies to do that, and that's what we're trying to work on. Is there any other questions or comments or anybody? Kind of a short presentation, but that's where we're at. No? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
The Collision Repair Committee, and while Tim Morgan with Spinacy Americas makes his way up here, you can thank the Collision Committee for producing that feature session we had today. So I want to thank your committee for kind of generating the feature session for this event. Thank you very much. So just use the right arrow.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Gary Ledoux from Honda for also being a co-chair. We both try to work hard together along with Skip and everybody else in the committee to make sure that we have information out there. Short presentation today. I apologize, I lost my notes on the way here due to being robbed. We won't go into detail, but should be able to work through it pretty quickly. NASTF over a period of time has been very well receptive on the automotive service side, but has never been really noticed by the collision side for them to be able to see what's actually available or how NASTF could help. We've worked with the industry and collaborated to be able to put materials together and go to the OEM with the information that we were asked to provide. And we were also able to put together a NASTF collision repair reference matrix of what materials was put together and what was available for the technician or for the shop owner or manager to be able to put things to purpose. What you probably gained from the presentation earlier today was a lot of information that I'm actually going to share over these next couple of slides. Is collision repair today is more of a science today than it ever was. Everyone in this room, whether you're a scan tool person, a mechanic, or whatever, is involved in the collision repair business, and you may not know it. If you start to look at vehicles today, you're going to find that more and more just changing a simple windshield is going to cause an event for the vehicle to have to go back to the service department. So it goes beyond the tools and equipment and the processes that they were talking about earlier today that just had to do with trying to do a proper repair and trying to make a vehicle safe. So in the back of your minds, realize just how important NASTF continues to be as the collision repair continues to grow and become harder and harder to deal with on a daily basis. And as Gary said, that repair processes can change every day. The materials in the cars change quickly. The steel used in a vehicle for say the beginning of 2014 could be replaced and changed by the end of 2014 in the build process. And with that happening, you always need to go back to the OEM procedure. You can't print a procedure and think 6 months later that procedure is going to work. And that's why this repair matrix is constantly updated. So when we look at the new technologies of what you see in collision repair, and I just listed the collision side of them, we're talking about material content. There's been a big buzz in the industry about aluminum. And aluminum right now has been pretty much the luxury brand vehicles where you see aluminum. But now the 2015 Ford F-150, which is the most sold vehicle in the world, has an aluminum body on top of a steel frame. That has caused a whirlwind of changes within the body shop of how repairs are processed, the tooling, and as you heard from the group earlier, the duplicate tooling that they may have a rivet tool that's approved by one manufacturer but not approved by the other. And the same thing with carbon fiber. The new BMW that was released, the 1 Series, is a carbon fiber body. We start to see more and more carbon fiber coming. And as we start to look at these materials, whether it's steel, carbon fiber, or aluminum, beyond just tools and repair processes, we also need to look at protection for the employees. As it was mentioned earlier, there's a new magnesium roof coming out on a Porsche. There needs to be personal protection for the employees in the environment so that these repair processes are done correctly. So are there a lot of changes in equipment? Yes. As Gary said, buying a new welder. Typically, being that I'm in the equipment business, I can tell you that the average body shop is probably on their 3rd generation spot welder today, and maybe looking at their 4th generation. Just because of material change and trying to make equipment to be able to process the materials quicker and faster without having to have an OEM parameter for every single weld. As Gary was talking about today, what he just purchased was a smart welder that it actually detects the thickness, it detects the, and it will make the automatic settings to take the thought of the technician out of it and be able to process the weld correctly. And as the vehicles are being built today, as you'll see from a couple slides I'm going to show you, there's multiple materials throughout the vehicle that have to be processed with that welder. So to have a welder that had OEM parameters for every single weld really isn't capable today. It needs to be a welder that can automatically program itself. And then obviously the repair technique. The OEM repair technique that's out there today is how the vehicle should be repaired correctly. The reason that is because obviously the OEM has done the behind-the-scenes work with the computer-animated design along with crash testing to be able to realize that, yes, we can put a sectioning procedure in this vehicle. No longer today can you take a vehicle and turn around and say that I'm going to cut this rail in half and put a joint behind it and put it together. Airbag timing in a vehicle today is in milliseconds. Reinforcing a panel that wasn't meant to be reinforced, that was probably supposed to collapse, is going to affect the airbag timing. And that airbag timing is the balloon hitting you in the face, saving you from the windshield. It's the difference between life and death. So when you start to look at OEM repair procedures, you need to, as a technician, as a shop owner, a manager, an estimator, you need to get with your parts supplier at the OEM level to find out what's available. You need to subscribe for the OEM information. Know that before you start the repair. And finding the procedure sometimes isn't easy. As we've known for the past few years that I've been on the NASTF committee, is that the OEM information isn't just hanging out there waiting for you to find it. And we look at typical materials today. This is, I took this from a Honda, actually, excuse me, I have another Honda coming, but I took this from a Ford product. As you can see, 40% of the vehicle today is now mild steel. Mild steel being the average steel that's easy to repair, that a vehicle was built from, and how it was put together, say 5 to 6, 7 years ago. And you work your way up to the highest strength steel that you see on the bottom there, which is a boron or a martensitic, being 13% of the vehicle. As you work through these high strength steels, these high strength low alloy steels and borons, that's where the welding processes change, that's where the sectioning procedures change, and this is where it's a science. So, but for a technician making a call to change a partial of a rail without a procedure is not going to put that vehicle back to a specification, that it's going to be able to go down and be able to have the same crash rating as it has in the past. That brings the presentation from earlier about having the OEMs involved in the repair process farther forward to make sure that they are protecting their vehicle owners and their make and model. We look at the new 2015 Chevy Colorado. I'm sure you're hearing the commercials on television. They're boasting about the big high-strength steel frame and body. This is also a game changer because in the truck market, They hadn't had to worry too much about fuel economy, and they were using lower grades of steel. But think about it, your trucks need to be stronger. They're being used for commercial use. They're being used more and more trucks are on the road today, even with the change in economy. So we start to look at where these materials are strong and where they need to be able to absorb energy, and that's going to change the complete repair process. And that's a pretty big game changer right there. And there's more and more coming from every manufacturer every day. And these procedures evolve. In the beginning of the release process, as Gary said earlier, it's not like he has this vision or these vehicles and the repair procedures sometimes even before launch. Sometimes the vehicles are launched and have to be revisited to be able to come up with the process or adjust the process because of a change in materials or because of something that came out of some collisions or even a supplier change that the material has changed in the vehicle. So it is a constant need to be able to go back and look at these procedures. What we've had in the with NASTF is not the ability to be able to be the clearinghouse of all the repair procedures. And that's where a lot of the car manufacturers went to ICAR and asked them to put together a repairability technical support portal. So if you go to rts.icar.com, you will find this main screen, and as you see right up front, the 2015 F-150 collision repair information now available. From that screen, you'll be able to navigate to be able to find what OEM information is available. Now, I can tell you that some of this material is on a subscription basis, but that's part of doing business. We need to be able to repair the car safe. We need to make sure that our customers are put back in the vehicle and can be able to maintain their vehicle to withstand another crash event. We go through the process. We're going to choose the vehicle manufacturer of what type of repair that type of manufacturer that we have, and from there we're going to be able to go into look at what's new and what's been released for the vehicle, or be able to find the collision repair information that's out there, and also shortcuts to many other areas within that manufacturer. As you see on this particular screen where it's showing you Ford partial part replacement. So that would tell you in that area you would be able to find, is there a procedure to be able to not replace the complete panel. You'll also see that on the right where it says Ford statements. Those are repairability statements. Those are telling you, yes, it's okay to do this, and no, it's not okay to do that. And those need to be followed strictly for every vehicle manufacturer. The collision repair business is a serious business. And think about, as I've thought about this my whole life, putting a vehicle back together, it's not just the person in the vehicle, it's everyone surrounding that vehicle. The doctor goes into an operating room, one person is at risk. It's the patient. One car not correctly and put back on the road leaves the whole driving public at risk. If that vehicle should fall apart or be in another event that it crushes too soon or it's too strong and takes out the occupants of the other vehicle. So here's an example of some Honda information that's shared where you could go in and click and find the repairability of 2011 Odyssey, the 2013 Accord, the 14 Accord, the hybrid. So all the information showing you for those new vehicles and even the older vehicles that are out there, how to properly identify the materials and how to properly be able to do the proper repair process. Brings me back to NASTF. NASTF's not going to go away on the collision side. NASTF still needs to be in place because we need to be able to also be there to support ICAR and be able to help them and work with them in areas where the information is not available, because NASTF is a strong enough group to be able to reach out to the car manufacturer through the long-standing relationships to be able to work hand in hand with ICAR and the vehicle manufacturers to make sure this information gets out to the technician, the shops, to protect all the vehicle owners in the U.S. So if you'd like to join the committee, there's a web address right there to join the committee. We'd like to have you. Again, I'd like to thank you for the 15 minutes. I may have ran over a couple, I'm not sure. Hard to work without notes, but you got to roll with it. I mean, I got no computers. I had no clothes yesterday. It's like, what do you do? So I'd like to thank Gary again for all your support and everything you do, from not even just NASTF, but what Honda does for the collision industry to keep things straight and keep repairing cars correctly. And thank you for everybody who's watching this online. We appreciate your support. Thanks.
The Service Information Committee is as the next segment, and the two co-chairs, Steve Douglas with the Alliance of Automobile Manufacturers and Dave Zwolina of Automotive One in Florida. Neither one of them are here right now. Steve Douglas had to leave to catch a flight back to California. So I will fill in for him here, as I will in a few minutes on a couple of other things. The Service Information Committee has a lot of projects and responsibilities. I list them here just for you to see. They are responsible for the OEM Technical Website Index. That's the page on the NASTF site that gets about, I would say 75% of the visits to the NASTF site are there. Well over 200,000 a year. Reprogramming information is another area of the NASTF site that gets significant visits, and that's in the process of change right now. When NASTF first began and the OEM websites were young, a lot of the information for a technician to determine if some information was available or was not available, you had to go to the NASTF matrices to see for what makes and models things were available or not available. I think the assumption now is that everything is available, so you can assume that it's on the OEM website. So the NASTF service information strategy has shifted somewhat, and we're moving from the matrix concept to more helpful interface, so that we can direct your question to a particular place or give you some hints on how to find what you're looking for actually on the automaker's website. The automakers are going to keep up their own websites much more aggressively than they're going to update any matrix that NASTF may have. So that process is in, is in evolution right now, and the Service Information Committee is working hard on that part of the project. If you want to see where we're going with that, the Scan Tool Resource Center is something that is also in development, but it's already up there on nastf.org, and it's more of a menu. Those of you who have ever gone to try to find an OEM scan tool, there are some OEM websites where the actual ordering process or what's available is difficult to find on the free side of their website. So what the Service Information Committee has tried to do here is to simplify the process and standardize the process, so that if you're looking for an OEM scan tool, we want you to be able to know what's in the box and how to buy it. The Service Information Request is the feedback mechanism that was really the first project that NASTF implemented. The automakers needed a way to hear back from the independents that were out repairing the vehicles, and if they couldn't find something in the OEM information, then they got to use this feedback mechanism called the service information request. And we're up to 630 of those as of yesterday. And the process still works today as it did when it was introduced in the early 2000s. And I think that if anything, we will probably try to make that easier. The board of directors recently, with the advent of the Memorandum of Understanding, it's not necessary anymore for NASTF to have an agreement to use the service information request. So we're in the process of redesigning the actual form that technicians would use to submit a request, make it easier, and make it more clear of what their responsibilities are too before they file a service information request. So that is another project, like I said, of the very busy Service Information Committee. Fortunately, it's a very big committee. Any questions about the Service Information Committee? The next committee, NASTF committee to feature today is the Education Committee. And you can see the co-chairs here are on the independent side, Rob Morrell with WorldPac, and he's not able to be here today. For the OEM side, we are very fortunate to be in the neighborhood of BMW. And Jason Kozak with BMW has driven all the way down here from up the street to be with us. So thank you very much.
A whole 12 miles. Skip. Hey, thank you, everyone.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so first I'd like to start out with a thank you to the co-chair, Rob Morrell, who was not able to be here today. Personally, I'd like to thank him for his continued dedication and efforts towards getting training to the independent repair community. Training information is very important, as you know. It equals the importance of service information. So the purpose of the committee. We have a few things that we're working on in 2015. The first order of business is to develop what we're calling a best practice guide on what information is needed and how to provide it to the independent repair facilities. The second thing we're going to do is do a survey and see what information is currently out there, what information needs to be improved. The third point which we need to discuss, and this is one of the most important ones, is do people know this information exists, and how do you access this information? Because if we put it out there and you don't know it's there, then it's of no use to anyone. And the final thing we're working on for this year is to work on developing a license agreement so we can license OE information to third-party training facilities. So that can be shared with everyone. A quick and short presentation. I would just like to make one statement about training information. The work we do here is very important, but unless you as a shop owner invest in your technicians, or you as a technician invest in yourself and utilize this training materials, then it won't be helpful to anyone. The Education Committee link on the NASTF website is listed there. If anyone would like to join this committee, you can do so. And with that, are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Skip.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks. Here's your water. Don't leave your water. Water is a valuable commodity here. The sixth committee for NASTF is the Communications Committee. Our OEM co-chair is the now retired John Cabanis, who is not here because he's in Key West. So let's, oh, yeah, you know. So John, if you're on the webcast, I want you to get this. And the board is currently considering candidates for the independent co-chair on this committee too. The Communications Committee is responsible really for the promotion and marketing of NASTF. So all of the projects that are developed by the other committees that turn into member benefits of the organization are how we communicate that out, how we organize our website, what we do with the marketing plan, our newsletter, our press releases, and things like that. I depend on the Communications Committee for a lot of that support. They recently recommended, had some recommendations for the Board of Directors, and the Board of Directors now is reviewing an update to the marketing strategy for NASTF. So it's a long process, and we've got a lot of people involved in that. So we hope that very soon you will see some new and exciting bits on the NASTF website, some things that will be able to attract technicians to understand what is available. So hopefully by our next fall general meeting in Las Vegas, November 4th, I believe it is, that we'll have something more on that. Again, just like all the committees, you can go to the committee webpage and click Join this committee if anything interests you. We certainly welcome anyone in the industry to get involved in any one committee or multiple committees, whatever interests you. We're finished with the committee segment, and I want to make sure that we've answered any questions. So this is kind of the part of the meeting where if someone has some concerns, we want to make sure that we hear about them. And I will, while you're thinking about what you might want to ask, I'll double check the emails to make sure that I've had several questions come in on the Mercedes theft relevant parts. And it's interesting, as the questions, we're on a delay. It's about a 1-minute delay on the webcast from here. And I was getting questions that we just answered. So I think I'll go back and look at everyone's questions, but make sure that that they are all in fact answered. But I believe from what I've seen, they have been answered. So if there are no questions, I want to make sure everyone knows that the fall 2015 general meeting is on Wednesday, November 4th at the Apex Trade Show at the Sands Expo Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's the SEMA Apex Trade Show Week in Las Vegas. And for those who are not getting the newsletter, NASTF is a free membership organization, and there's two benefits, one to us as NASTF and one to you as a member of the industry. By going to nastf.org/getnastf, you can complete the application and you'll sign up and start getting the newsletter. And the newsletter comes out 10 times a year, and I think you'll find that it has some valuable information in it for everyone, from technicians to the automakers. And the other benefit is to NASTF, because The automakers look at NASTF's reach, the number of people who get the newsletter, the number of technicians who participate in our who submit the service information requests. And it's easy to tell when an automaker looks at the fact that our newsletter distribution has gone up 500% in the last 2.5 years. NASTF must be relevant, as Claude said in his presentation. So if you're out there in the industry and you're not yet getting the NASTF newsletter, please be sure that you do so. So with that, thank you very much for attending, and this meeting is adjourned.